Spectre Divide, the attack FPS game that just came out, co-created by Shroud. Shroud was one of the game advisors on this. This isn't... I think he has a Project Astra coming out, which I think he has more involvement in. But this has essentially been his project for a while now. So they just came out with a new patch yesterday, talking about progression and other stuff. I'm interested to get into it. But yeah, why don't we just jump into that real fast? So essentially, yesterday's patch was about contracts and endorsements and how fast you receive endorsements for when it comes to you know, the sponsors and all that. So they actually increased that. They said that apparently it has been slower than intended. Surprise, surprise. So they upped the rounds, the stuff that you get from weekly and daily contracts quite a bit. You get 200 extra fame or whatever it's called for the endorsement per round that you play, so that's pretty good. Your daily goals go from 3,000 to 6,000, so it doubles it. Weekly goals go from 12,000 to 24,000, and team goals are varied by quest, but generally doubled. Crew star increased from 2,000 to 4,000, and crew competition rewards are generally doubled as well. Other things, you now have custom matches if you're watching this in the future and you're confused. Yes, there was a small period of time in that week that we've had Spectre Divide in which custom matches were not a thing. If you play Valorant, if you play CS, that might be crazy to you. Lineups are like one of the most essential things in attack shooter, but it's true. And they just got it figured out. So now you can practice lineups, learn maps, and create content. Apparently you can now also surrender starting on round 2. There was an issue, we'll get into that later, but essentially people were getting kicked off because of party ping differences, something like that, and they addressed that, and they fixed an issue that should reduce disconnects from matches due to network throttling and improved graphic performance on Mill B site with some optimization changes there, which is something that they get into in what I'm about to read you, but essentially that is their focus for the time being after this. They also fixed some bugs, known issues. Apparently you can lose connection, team voice, blah, 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 blah. Instant replay causes performance stutters on even high-end machines. Ooh. In rare cases, Gold Swing Partition can spawn in the correct location. If you want to read this, it's on the Steam page. All right, so we're going to move on to the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, and that is, of course, Launch Week Recap. TLDR, we're going to be reading through this, so if you want to, like, essentially they give you a TLDR on there. But, so, the game has been open for a week. Spectre Divide has officially been live for just over a week. As an indie team launching and self-publishing our first game, it's been an exciting and exhausting first 7 days. The team is grinding around the clock to ship fixes, make improvements, and address your feedback. Yesterday, we shipped a patch with big updates, including 2x progression speed, custom matches of any player count, improved server stability, and more. Our top priority for the next patch is improving client performance. Just like I said, they're going to be focusing on performance. Now, I want to, before I continue this, I'm going to make criticisms of the game, and I can tell you this right now. It is not out of malice. I do not hate the game. I want the game to succeed. I do care about this game succeeding. I want there to be competition against games like Valorant, and frankly, this is the thing that I have the most faith in comparison to things like Deadlock coming out and that Marvel game that came out. Like I much prefer to have a small indie studio like Mountaintop than anything else. So anything that I put out is purely criticism. It is not meant to attack or demean any of the developers. If you go out of your way to harass them, I do not condone that. I do not condone any harassment of any devs. with that being said, let's get back into this. There's a lot to do, but we're just getting started as we enter week 2. It feels like the right moment to reflect on launch week, take you behind the curtain, and share a preview of what's next. I'm going to take a sip of water. But let's start with Tuesday morning of last week and our missteps right out of the gate. Fixing the matchmaker. Within the first hour of being live, it became clear that our matchmaker wasn't up to the task of processing 30,000 plus players that dove into queue. Okay, I'm just gonna take a second and just, okay, like, there are many games that will come out and servers are bad at launch. Overwatch 2 did the same thing. I think CS had a little time where it was down. That, like, launch days usually aren't that great. So them talking about their matchmaker breaking, I mean, yeah, it sucks. And 30,000 people is not a lot of people, but we're also dealing with a much smaller game. And so I never, ever get upset with developers for having a game not work in the first few hours on launch, especially when it's highly anticipated like Spectre was. So I'm not against them on that. Anybody who's upset with that, I'm sorry. It's just how game development works. It got fixed. By the second day, everything was hunky-dory. Heck, by the time I got to play it, which was late into the day, it was already pretty much fixed. So, I mean, people getting upset with that doesn't make much sense to me. Now, if we continue, after investigating, we discovered our matchmaking service, which puts you into a healthy match based on skill, region, party size, etc., was taking minutes per cycle. Minutes! That's why you were having like 10-minute queues, because the thing was updating every like 10 minutes. That's crazy. We immediately identified a bottleneck in the matchmaking architecture that prevented players from joining or leaving the queue while the matchmaking loop was in progress. I think I've seen pictures of that where people couldn't like click off of the queue or click into a queue. I know there's a bug that I found where if you try to go into the training range, sometimes you have to click on the button a few times before you can queue into it, which I think is a little weird, but nothing too out of the ordinary. Again, that's a small bug in comparison to having to wait like 10 minutes because the matchmaker has this weird kink in it, you know? It took us the better part of launch day to narrow in on a fix, but the patch we rolled out in the early evening resolved the issues in joining/leaving the queue and reduced matchmaking loop to a few seconds, which is really good, and a few seconds is much, much better. This is a huge miss on our part. We should have caught this architecture bottleneck ahead of launch. In hindsight, we missed over some key indicators during load tests that were obvious red flags, and that matchmaking at scale with real players would fall over. I mean, again, I don't think they have anything to apologize for on that front, but like, at the same time, I'm glad they found the fix, you know? That's the type of thing, like, they got it done in less than a day. You got to be happy for it. Anyway, let's keep moving on. Better cosmetic pricing. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Now this is where I'm going to sound like a hater. Before this, it sounds like I'm just glazing the company. This is a much bigger deal to me. Second, we moved quickly to improve pricing for cosmetics across the board after we missed the mark with launch. Oh boy, did they. I don't know if you've seen pictures or have played the game yourself and saw how much it cost to buy the bundle at launch. The cryo bundle that they had, the cryotech, whatever it is, that was $90. $90. They just straight up copied Valorant. They copied Valorant to the T. Weapon upgrades cost money. The bundle itself cost an exorbitant amount of money. Like, that type of stuff was crazy. And they hid it under this guise of, like, you could earn your way through the upgrade, so you didn't have to worry about $300 plus weapon bundles. But, like, the grind, as we just discussed, was so slow that working on your weapon bundle would take ages to unlock it. So they kind of expected you to get fed up with it and purchase it anyway, which I think is extremely predatory and completely wrong of them to do. Their solution, the thing that they moved quickly to improve the pricing for cosmetics across the board, was to reduce the prices of cosmetics by like 20%. I'm not kidding you. The Cryotech went from being $90 to $70. I'm sorry, but the problem that I had was the predatory way in which you were trying to get that money. It didn't matter if it was $70, $90. It didn't matter if it was $5. Like, it's just the fact that you want to make everything seem necessary in the microtransactions of it all, you know? Like, it's like those mobile games that are like, do you want to level up your character, or do you want to buy the upgrade that can make your character super overpowered so you can compete PvP with all the other people? You know, a game like that. Raid Shadow Legends, the AFK arena game that everybody's been promoting recently. There are a ton of people that will just try to steal money from you by giving you things that are better. Now, this is just cosmetics, but I want you to think about it like this. Weapon upgrades for a gun skin that you paid for requires an endorsement. Now, in my opinion, that's perfectly reasonable. If you can set up a gun skin and collect that gun skin by playing the game and upgrade it, that's fine. I think it's good. Do you know what sucks about that? The fact that that's not just it. Oh my God, I'm talking too much. I'm so sorry. People are appalled. What are endorsements used for? Well, they're used for getting the sponsors in the game, right? Like, you want to play as Umbra, you want to play as Ghostlink, you want to play as Vector, you want to play as, what's the fourth one? Mew? You want to play as those 4 sponsors? You do! So you want to unlock them. That requires you to endorse it. But that takes away the endorsement from your weapon. You would think that there would be a separate endorsement for the weapon skins and regular skins in general, and the sponsors that make the game that focus purely on changing the gameplay of it, right? Like, those things you unlock because you want to get a competitive advantage. If Umbra is better than Riker, you want to be able to choose Umbra, so you focus on unlocking Umbra. But what if you spent $90, the $90 that they requested, now $70 on Cryotech, and then wanted to get the skin, surprisingly, you just spent all this money, you want to get that gun skin upgraded, right? So now you have to choose between this character that might give you a competitive advantage in a map, or the gun skin, which you would have to choose each gun skin individually and fully level up. What I'm trying to say is, if they had 2 of them, I'd be less angry. But because there's only 1 of them, that makes me extremely angry. We really appreciate your direct feedback on this. Sorry again that we got this wrong. Bop and Swap, Spectre Divide's game director, shared all the context in a blog post on the evening of launch day. Now, his post essentially came down to, oh, I'm so sorry, but let me see. It essentially came down to, I'm so sorry, but we need you to spend money so that we can keep the game up. Which, like, I get it. I understand. But you're legit using the predatory practices of the AAA games that people are trying to get away from now, right? You want to use the same manipulative tactics as a Riot Games game, as a CS2 game, right? Like, you want to try to steal as much money from people's wallets as humanly possible for a game that has, and I don't mean this in a bad way, like, every game has its humble beginnings, but 30,000 players? I just want to check that again, because quite frankly, Yeah, of all time, their highest player count was 30,000, 31,000. Let's just take a look for some reason. We'll just grab a random game out of our head. Let's just grab CS, right? Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike 2. How many people are playing Counter-Strike 2 just this week? What's the peak this week? Oh, would you look at this? 1.3 million people. That's this week. Mind you, and a lot of those are probably bats. Let's be honest. Why don't we check something else? Why don't we check Rainbow Six Siege? How about that? That one is a little unfair because Rainbow Six Siege is a paid game, right? Right. Okay, let's just look at this real fast. Oh, their peak this week was 70,000. 70,000. Their peak in 24 hours was 67,000. I just wanted to put that in context. That, like, we're trying to sap as much money out of people as humanly possible. We're trying to make this game as popular as possible. Yet at the same time, we have half of Rainbow Six Siege's player base this week. Today. At our peak. Just saying. A massive thank you to everyone who's spent anything to support Spectre so far. We plan to keep the game 100% free to play as an independent studio who's self-publishing. Every dollar you spend directly funds development and goes towards making the game better. I just want to reiterate because I kind of feel like this is going to make me seem like I genuinely hate the game. When the reality is, I bought the Founders Pack, I bought the Supporters Pack, right, or the whatever the other one is. I bought both of them, both of the things that you could buy on Steam. I used that to buy the Cryo bundle. Like I did that. I bought gun skins using the money that I got from buying like cosmetics. That I supported the game. I think it's ridiculous that we're trying to drag in people, get people interested, with the same predatory practices that Valorant does. I think it's just a little insane. Am I wrong for thinking that? I don't think I am. Servers under siege. Now this gets a little upsetting, but not unexpected, which sucks to say, but let's go through this. To cap off launch day at around 9 p.m. PT, we started seeing random CCU drops fitting the pattern of a single source denial of service, a DDoS attack. My headphones turned off. That was weird. For players, this manifested as being stuck, unable to log into the game, or being stuck loading. The ultimate nightmare. We worked with our back-end and server partners to set up protections to prevent single IP attacks. That resolved the outage, but we ran into similar unexpected CCU drops during the next few days. Over the course of the investigation, we've discovered a series of minor issues, which ranged from hitting invisible rate limits with our hosting provider to misconfigured admin tooling that we use to manage the game. We've addressed all these, and we've been working around the clock to set up additional metrics and alerting for future detection and mitigation. On Saturday morning, we were the target of a malicious DDoS attack on our backend. Fortunately, our backend partners gracefully handled this for us with minimum impact to players, thanks to our protections that we put in place earlier in the week. I think DDoS attack on our backend essentially means that they almost had like a leak, which would suck. That would be awful, but thankfully that was not the case. Special shout out to our partners at Pragma, AWS, and Hathora, who have been in the trenches with us investigating these issues. One, I mean, we're finding out that they're using Amazon Web Services, so do with that what you will. Two, sucks, but again, not unexpected. This is a heavily anticipated game, and a game that is pretty heavily pushed for being the game that Shroud worked on, right? So it makes sense that this is happening. And I'm glad they got through it all right, and nothing bad happened. I mean, the game wasn't even that bad when I was playing through it, and apparently this was a pretty normal thing. So yeah, good on them. Login issues. A large number of players, especially those behind network firewalls, had trouble connecting to our platform services for receiving an innocuous, It's innocuous. Cannot create party join request error. We discovered this was related to our region detection flow, what we use to make sure you're playing at the lowest possible ping. On Saturday morning, we simply moved our ping endpoints to a different port, which seemed to have resolved the issue for most players. So if you still have that issue, make sure to contact support. Anyway, now they're talking about feedback. Essentially, they're going to be focusing now on nailing client performance, improving core gameplay, making sure servers are online around the clock, tuning, and improving our anti-cheat system. There have already been a few hackers inside of the game. There was hackers during the closed beta, which I don't know how these people are doing it, but I guess they did. Whatever. They're addressing that and fixing bugs that take away from the moment-to-moment fun. If you have suggestions for what you'd like to see, make sure to give them in the Give Feedback channel. All right. Oh, and then they start talking about how they pulled a surprise launch for Ranked and lowered the... because you were supposed to play 15 casual wins, something like that. 15, maybe 10 casual wins, but they ended up dropping it to 5. Yeah,